Hi there, David Taylor on Mr. Pelargonium, back with another video for the Pelargonium and Geranium Society. We're coming up to zonal stopping time, and I said last week that I was going to actually do some videos on zonal stopping. This is zonal Pelargonium stopping, that is. And I thought, well, what better way to do an example of the stopping for zonals than with our test plant. So let's get going. Hi, well, welcome back to the channel, and I did say in my previous video that I was going to be looking at zonal Pelargonium stopping this week. That's giving your plants a little bit of a trim back for the show season in June. Now, I realise that obviously a lot of people do not exhibit their Pelargoniums, which is a shame because it's a really interesting and a really sort of nice thing to do. But this is also very helpful for your own plants to make them nice and bushy for the upcoming season. So it's something that we do now around about the sort of mid-February period, around about 18, 19 weeks prior to our national annual show, which this year is being held on the 22nd of June. So, I mean, that's almost as late as we would hold it, actually. So you could argue we're a week or two marginally later than we would normally be stopping our zonal Pelargoniums. Now, I will put a note there as to the sort of stopping times for all of the Pelargonium plants because it's slightly shorter for the single flowering varieties. I'm talking about double zonals here and indeed regals, but everybody knows that I have to do my regals earlier because I'm in a pretty shaded situation here with my greenhouse. So I've done mine way back at the turn of the year. So I do my regals very early, but normally you would do them at this time as well. Now, I thought, what better way really to do this example by using our test plant. So this is very much a test plant video. I'll put it in the playlist for the test plant because we can have a look at this, see how it's come through the winter, see how it's growing. And initially you can already see I've actually let this bloom. One of the key differences, of course, is that the bloom colours in the winter are much more muted. This has got a sort of very dullish, almost purpley red bloom, but this is a more vibrant red bloom in the main flowering season once we get to sort of April, May time and onwards. But in the winter, Pelargonium blooms can be a slightly different shade, and that's very much like this one has gone as I've let this go just over the winter period. I'm just going to close in and I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do. Right, now as I said, I've just let this flower over the winter. It has come through very well. Got a few yellowing leaves which we can remove. Now this has sort of needed watering relatively regularly actually, so I've let this grow on quite nicely. And it's needed watering about once a week. The roots got down into the pot very quickly. If we just look at the potting timing, which I will have on the label. This was repotted at the end of August, basically. So it's been in this pot quite a while, so it's nice and pot bound. And that is, of course, one of the key things that we need to happen with flowering Pelargoniums. They need to be nice and tight in the pot. The roots need to have really filled that pot and be nice and tight, and that encourages blooming. It could well be why this plant is wanting to bloom as well, but we're going to get rid of all these blooms because we don't want the energy of the plant going into blooming at this stage. So there's just a little bit of work to do. And immediately you can see here that there's a bloom that's just begun to rot back, and that's got into the leaf, and that has rotted that leaf as well. So we'll have to get rid of that. Now, as usual, this plant is pretty light and very much on the dry side. This hasn't been watered for a week now, and the roots poking through are very much on the dry side. But you can see the roots very much are showing through. and that's very much how we want it to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean my knife, as is always the way. In Jay's Fluid, I do get asked what I use. It's a sort of popular horticultural disinfectant, Jay's Fluid. That cleans the knife. And we start firstly getting rid of these blooms. And I'm going to just snap these back to the base of the stems. Now, one of the key things is it is a dryish day today. So as soon as I finish this video, the greenhouse will be opened up to seal all these little cuts that we're going to do. I'm just getting rid of these dead leaves though initially. There's another bloom coming through there, which I will snap off, young one. Just go around and do some basic tidying up initially. Get rid of that bloom, which is just coming. Get rid of that bloom, which is just coming. Get rid of this yellowing stem here, which I think is yellow just purely down to lack of light in that particular case. Again, another little bloom. I'm taking even these tiny little baby blooms off because I want the plant to concentrate on growing now. I do not want any effort going into producing bloom. Now, once I've sort of cleared some of these leaves, we just run into tidying up some of the stipules. I will take that inner leaf out, primarily because another thing that we're of course trying to do here is get plenty of light going down into the body of the plant. So that's another thing that we're trying to achieve, because that's what really encourages nice, dense, strong growth. So I'm going to remove some of these inner leaves, even though they're clean. Now, this, of course, is going to be shown in the dwarf class. This is in a 12 centimetre pot, which we know are not easily available these days. They're certainly not available in garden centres. We are potentially going forward looking to sort of review the pot sizes, but at the moment, I mean, we do sell them at the shows and AGMs and things like that we do attend. We have got a stock of them, so you know, you can get hold of them, but you can only get hold of them wholesale. As I look down at the top of this is very, very circular. We have trained it very well, and we've gone through this together. So, you know, look at the previous videos to get an understanding of how we've arrived at this point. But to be honest, it's grown very well, and we've got it to a situation now where it's nicely rounded. And this will almost certainly be entered into the show, primarily because I actually haven't got a great number of dwarfs to show anyway. Some of the older ones, I did get the best in show with a dwarf last year, but that plant I lost over the winter. It was a 5-year-old plant, and it just got a bit of rot in it, and that was the end of that one, unfortunately. Now, what I'm doing now, I'm just removing some of the lower leaves that are sort of, you know, really blocking air, maybe getting into the base of the plant. So we'll get a lot of new growth come through once the spring really gets going, and we up the feeding. The feeding will remain the same, but the watering will increase once the warmth starts to come in a month or two. What we could desperately do with here is some good sunlight. We're not getting a lot of sunshine at the moment. A lot of these, where you get a lot of leaves overlapping onto stems, these should be broken off without snapping the stem, of course. So you need to be a bit careful. Just push down at the base of the leaf, and it should snap off without too many problems. All I'm doing now then, really, this is just enabling me to see the structure of the plant. We're immediately seeing, I think here, maybe a stem that's growing out a little bit too much, so that might need a bit of a stronger cutback. But the good thing is we've got another one exactly the same around the other side. So that's nice and balanced. The stopping really is generally fairly shallow. We're only going to go down a node or two, but some you may need to go down a bit further in order to balance the plant. But I think on this occasion, if I look at this at an angle, I'm looking at this basically from the side. That is the only stem that I can see that is a real problem, because it's much higher than some of the others. So I may take that one down a bit further, but we'll have a look. So we've got our clean knife. So the first stop that I'm going to do is here, and just underneath where I've broken off a flower stem, there is a nice little nodal break coming through. And there we are. Just take that stipule off below it. There's a nodal break coming through. And that's one that I've taken off a little bit deeper. Now this one here was this side one that I was speaking about a moment ago. Just taking another leaf off by accident. So I'm now going to take this back again to another little stem that's just breaking below the leaf joint. Now in the main, zonals, they grow through to the tip. There's a new joint at the top. You'll have a bloom underneath, and then you'll have another potential stem joint node breaking underneath that. So they go sort of alternate. So basically every other break is a flower stem. So you'll have flower stem, nodal main stem break, then another flower stem, then another nodal stem break. That's generally how they go. They go every other, not exhaustively, but in the main it's more or less like that. So just take that one down. Just trying to think what I'm going to do with that one. This one's got quite a few nodes breaking out, so I'm going to take that one down to there. Now in the main, I will want that node to be on the other side, but I've got several. I've got one coming out underneath, I've got another one coming out the side, so I'm not too bothered about that at this point. And in fact, I will break that stem off as well, just to, again, a bit more light in there. Now tiny little stems like this I will leave alone. You can't do anything with that. We've had a stop probably above there. Maybe in the autumn we give it a little bit of a tidy up. Have a look back at the video, but there's a little node breaking out there, and that's almost coming through from the stop that I did in the autumn, so that won't be touched. You can't do anything with that. That's going to grow, that will be fine. So this one here, I'm going to give a very, very close, literally a little tip stop. And you just really, in this case, it's just a question of literally just starting it, and you can rub it off really. There we are, that's had a little bit of a stop there. Now around this way, again, we've got an inward growing leaf that's just covering that stem, so we'll get rid of that. Now this top stem here, so this is again a little tipper stop that you can do. There we are. So that one, this one here does need coming down. That's quite tall, isn't it? So I'm going to cut that fairly hard, that one. But we've got plenty of side shoots just beginning to break through. We've got quite a big one down there, that's fine. Again, we will look at this on its side when we've sort of just done a bit of the basic stopping here. So this one's overhanging quite a bit, so I'm going to take that right back to there just to balance it. I was just looking over this side, and that's sort of quite tight to the rim of the pot, That's sort of how we can measure it really. That one probably needs a little tip stop, and hopefully you can see that this time. It is literally just starting it and rubbing it off, nothing more than that. Again, that's just sort of, just nipping it. It was one node down, but you can see where I've gone on that. I'll just take out some of these stipules. Now, I am taking a risk doing this slightly early, I suppose, but as I've said in the past, it's better to have things stopped earlier rather than too late, because if you stop plants late, you can't magic blooms from nowhere for a specific time, but if you've got blooms that have maybe gone over, you can of course remove those. So it's better to have your plants going a little bit earlier rather than a bit later. It's certainly in the showcase anyway. For your own purposes in the garden, obviously it doesn't matter. That one's sticking out a little bit, this one over here. So we'll cut that one below the little bloom that we took off earlier on that one. So now it's just a question of giving it a tip. I'm looking at it from the side. Everything looks fairly balanced. And I think that's more or less it. That's going to be it for the plant's first show stop. A little bit more tidying up to do there with the stipules. I've got a few dead stipules on it from the winter. This has really been opened up now, and the majority of the stems have been cut. Now, one or two of the very shorter ones I've just left because I want them to sort of bush through. There's another small one there, again with a few stipules on. So I'm going to just nip them off. So you can hopefully see here the difference in the two types of stop. You've got a little tip stop on that one, but this one's been taken down to sort of balance it off. That's been cut fairly deep. And this is why we're doing it as sort of the 19-week mark, just to give this one a little bit of extra time to burst out, because that one will come through a little bit quicker. With the 19 weeks, that'll give it sort of good time to break through. But some of the others, like there's one there that I've left, I want that to sort of fill out and fill some of this gap over here. I think it's going to be, hopefully something that's, worth getting to the show. And I hope it's going to be proving that all of the work we've done over the last couple of years has been worth it. Right, so there we go. That is our test plant stopped for its very first show. Now, we've been going through this for the best part of a couple of years. I am seeing stipules all the time on this, so I'm going to continue to take them off. I'm hopeful that, nothing really bad befalls it in the time between now and the show, which is about 5 months, 5.5 months. So it's quite exciting to see how it goes. As I say, I have got very few dwarfs. I think I've only got one other, and that's that one over there. Not had a lot of luck with my dwarfs through the winter this year, but this one has very much behaved itself, probably because of all the attention that I've given it. So it's going to be great to see how it goes. Then we'll obviously be following it again to see how it develops through the spring. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed this video and a look at zonal stopping. As I said, I put the notes up about the stopping times for all the plants. I'll be back in a week or two when I actually want to do some work on my Angel Standard, which has got quite big. That's going to need a little bit of a clip back prior to preparing it for the show season, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a week or two. So that's it. Bye bye from me for now.